fry cook games. I mean, what could be bigger than the fry cook games? The fast food coliseum, the cheering crowd, the realistic fish head announcing. If you were any sort of athlete, that's the dream.
I mean, the whole world was watching. Even the opening ceremony was mind-blowing, all right? The torch went out before the fire was lit. The torchbearer caught fire. You just knew it was gonna be an exciting year.
It was a legend relived year after year, a tradition upheld and coveted by its people, and the ultimate showdown in the world of sports. It was the Fry Cook Games. Microwaves hum, patties sizzle, and heat lamps keep the fast food spirit warm, as the hearts of millions of fans are won and lost by the feats of godlike athletes. But it was during the 21st annual Fry Cook Games in Bikini Bottom that the sport was taken to another level by two bright-eyed young cooks who never knew the impact they would have on the games.
People were naturally excited about the games, but when we saw SpongeBob and Patrick step out into the arena, you could just feel it. There was something about the electricity that they brought. This year was gonna be big.
It's a rivalry that even today is considered an icon in sports history. But for the young players involved, it was somehow even bigger, because long before they shared the most polarizing match of all time, Star and SquarePants shared an unlikely friendship.
It was a pretty well-kept secret that not only did they know each other before the Fry Cook Games, they lived on the same street. They were neighbors. Imagine if people knew that.
As best friends and neighbors, Star and SquarePants had bonded over bubble blowing, jellyfishing, and playing in empty cardboard boxes. It was impossible to truly measure just how much the pair had in common. But those who knew their particular brand of fun could see they were two of a kind. So when SpongeBob was drafted by the Krusty Krab as their new starting fry cook, the dynamic of his friendship with Star began to shift.
Patrick always put on a good face about it. He was happy that SpongeBob got this opportunity. But deep down, I mean, he was jealous, right?
SpongeBob was a clear natural behind the grill, and the world was catching on. His performance, day after day, quickly earning him a reputation as the best the Krusty Krab had ever seen. And with that realization came an onslaught of recognition.
On almost a daily basis, he would get some kind of an award. He even had a closet specifically in his pineapple that was just for awards. And SpongeBob and Patrick were neighbors, so every now and again something would get delivered to Patrick's house that was an award for SpongeBob, and I think that hurt Patrick a little bit.
SquarePants' success only shined a light on the pair's differences. SpongeBob lived in luxurious tropical fruit. Patrick lived under a rock. SpongeBob was breaking fast food records. Patrick largely did nothing at all. Until one day, Star decided it was his time to shine and applied for a job at the Krusty Krab.
In Patrick's eyes, SpongeBob was the star. Ironically, he saw how talented he was. He saw how respected he was. He just wanted a taste of that.
SpongeBob happily took his old friend under his wing. Until now, the world only had eyes for their beloved absorbent fry cook. They never saw Patrick Star coming.
It's his first shift, and he's already making unforced errors. He answers the phone like a rookie. His form on the broom, horrible. He's flustered. Finally, he's trying to prove himself. It's the opportunity of his life.
It marked the beginning of his career, but his poor performance was threatening to bring it to a swift end. Star knew that his only hope was to pull off something big.
It was his first day, okay? His first day. He's an absolute rookie. He is just making error after error. I mean, the clock is running out. He knows that it is now or never. And then there's this jar that needs to be opened. And you can see the focus on his face. It's as if everything else goes silent. And he puts his hand on the lid of the jar, and like it's nothing, he takes the lid off the jar. I mean, he makes it look easy.
His hand on the jar, and oh, the lid has come clean off the jar. That's right, newcomer Patrick Star has successfully opened a jar on the first day of his fry cooking career. Can you believe it?
The press had a field day. I thought some of those reporters were gonna faint. They had never heard of Patrick Star. It's as if he was living under a rock. Then they find out it's his first day, and already he's taking lids off of jars. Remarkable.
It was that play that solidified Starr's place in the memory of fry cooking fans everywhere. He had found his 15 minutes of fame, and he wanted more. On his next shift, Patrick doubled down on a new strategy of copying his friend's every move, and it was putting a strain on their friendship.
His whole plan was to do exactly what SpongeBob did. He was even dressing like him. It was weird, actually.
Yeah, that was really the first time I think they saw each other as enemies. They were on the same team, but they were competing.
It's that shift that many believe was the birth of what would become a legendary rivalry. It could be seen as a preview of the clash that would eventually come during the 21st Fry Cook Games. But this preview would be short-lived, because just as the battle was heating up, it was brought to a screeching halt when Patrick received an award.
To SpongeBob, that was the end of it. You know, they had had their battle. Patrick had got what he wanted. He was an award winner now. It was over.
Doing absolutely nothing longer than anybody else. That's what his award was for. Sure, it sounds awesome, but I think under his smile, Patrick was borderline insulted by the award.
Despite his disappointment, the arrival of Starr's award seemed to calm the storm of their rivalry, with Starr resigning from his position at the Krusty Krab. While it's difficult to know why the young starfish stepped down, one thing's for sure: this rivalry was far from over.
Things went back to normal for a while after that. The rivalry was over. SpongeBob went back to his career. Patrick rediscovered his passion for doing absolutely nothing until he discovered the Fry Cook Games.
As the 21st annual Fry Cook Games fast approached, SpongeBob received late word that he was being called up to compete on what would be perhaps the greatest day of his young life. To him, bringing home the gold would be to bring honor and glory to the Krusty Krab, a restaurant that already had quite a reputation at the Games.
The Fry Cook Games were huge. The simple fact is, when they were going on, people were paying attention. If you were to poll the crowd and ask them why they were watching, you'd get a bunch of answers. Some people would say for the love of the game, for the fish sticks, for the tradition, blah, 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 blah. But the real reason we were watching was to see the Krusty Krab face off against the Chum Bucket. That rivalry was captivating before anybody ever heard of SpongeBob SquarePants or Patrick Star.
The contention between these two restaurant powerhouses spans decades and always seems to be centered around their respective owners, Eugene Krabs and Sheldon Plankton.
When the Krusty Krab announced that SpongeBob was gonna compete over Krabs, I mean, we were shocked. Like, that's cool, but who was gonna compete for the Chum Bucket?
I genuinely believe that Patrick showed up to support SpongeBob. But then when he got there, things didn't go that way.
This game meant so much to SpongeBob. And with Patrick there too, well, you just knew it was gonna turn into a fight. I mean, with the history these guys had.
Patrick just started calling fry cooking easy. SpongeBob got a little heated, and then Patrick said, "Oh, come on, you're just flipping patties." I'm sorry, what?
You know, SpongeBob wasn't innocent in all this. He was starting to getting a little bit of an ego. He started calling the Fry Cooks an elite corps, you know, implying that Pat wasn't a part of this.
It was that small encounter that would change the course of history. With the old rivalry reignited and fresh in the minds of both competitors, the Fry Cook Games took an unexpected turn.
We had just heard that SpongeBob would be competing. Okay, the Chum Bucket didn't even stand a chance. I think Plankton really felt small in that moment. And then, like a sign from Neptune, the one person in the world who could take on SpongeBob walks into his grasp, angry and ready to get back in the game. It was meant to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, turn your attention to the Southwest Corridor. Representing the Chum Bucket, Patrick Star!
In an unprecedented move, the Chum Bucket changed their roster just moments before the start of the games. And just like that, the two cooks from Conch Street were back on that familiar collision course that started all those years ago.
Who would have ever thought we'd get to see this? These guys were both favorites from the same hometown. And now they were facing each other?
SpongeBob SquarePants and Patrick Star. Two cooks who had both taken vastly different paths with the same destination, the 21st annual Fry Cook Games. And they were about to begin.
These guys are playing the same game, but with totally different playbooks. Take the chocolate high dive. SpongeBob attempts a full banana fudge pop with 2 sticks. 2 sticks. No, he knew he needed something big, and he nails it. And he even had toasted almonds. I mean, by the books, it's absolutely perfect. Then Patrick steps up, and he's not fancy. His form's kind of sloppy, but he pulls off this beautiful single scoop strawberry cone with a chocolate dip. This guy's, he's playing an old school game, and everybody's eating it up. You saw this pattern repeat itself in every event. The patty toss, the butter skating, the spatula skiing. SpongeBob was the seasoned vet, everything by the books. Patrick was the rookie of the year. Just so full of raw passion. I mean, you can't teach that.
That's what made this so explosive. I mean, SpongeBob represented the institution of fry cooking. If you followed the sport, you had to love the kid. But Patrick represented the fans. He represented all those kids who looked up to him and they said, one day, I can be that. And how can you root against that?
I don't want to say it wasn't fun to watch. I mean, of course it was. It was a historic game. But wow, it was also stressful. I mean, you didn't want to see either of these guys go down. And it was so close. There wasn't a single moment where one pulled ahead of the other. They were just neck and neck the whole time. Sure, they were opposites, but they were exactly the same.
The contest went on for hours, full of ups and downs for both beloved competitors, but never tipping the scales in favor of either champion. In the end, it would all come down to bun wrestling.
Of course, if a game ever goes to bun wrestling, it's exciting, but this time was even more. I mean, all night, these guys have been clashing, and it's a real battle. But in the bun wrestling, there was so much anger, so much emotion from both of them.
It was the first time the fans could see that something deeper was happening. The gloves were off, and these two were not afraid to fight dirty.
It was like the refs were watching a different game. You know, Patrick actually licked SpongeBob's foot. What are you, blind? That was intentional.
Then there was Erasegate. Patrick's name wasn't Rick. SpongeBob knew that. No one can ever prove it. But come on, clearly he had an illegal eraser out there. Say what you will about their rivalry, that was below the belt.
As the match raged on, the true animosity between the two fry cooks reared its ugly head and threatened to overshadow the honor and tradition of the Fry Cook Games. But at the darkest moment of the thunderous clash, a glimmer of light shined through.
We weren't excited anymore. We weren't cheering. We were scared. No, really. I mean, we had seen how real it had gotten. It was beyond competition and sport. And then, right when the tension was just at its peak, you could hear it rip.
Fry cooking's not for the faint of heart. These athletes, they know the risk. Pan rips happen. Even to SpongeBob. But a simultaneous rip, both players at the same time, it was unheard of.
The players froze as their pants ripped away, exposing the unlikely color of their underwear. Patrick wore yellow, and SpongeBob wore pink.
The underwear really showed the respect they had for each other. To know that they got up that morning and put on that color underwear out of respect. I mean, even though they were enemies, they had this connection, this history that couldn't be broken. And it obviously meant a lot to both of them. Even though they couldn't say it.
Think of all that tension, that aggression they both had bottled up. And then buried even deeper, that feeling of respect they had for one another, that they pretended wasn't there. And then to have that weight just suddenly lifted, anyone would have broken down.
The renowned hero of the Krusty Krab and the wonderkind everyman who lived under a rock. Their stories couldn't be more different, but somehow they were intertwined. It was these two anomalies of the sport who played a historic game, a game that would change the sport of fry cooking forever. And they didn't even finish it.
You forget sometimes that both players forfeited that day as soon as they saw the underpants. They couldn't fight anymore. They were flying each other's flags. It was bigger than sports.
Now, there are people who think this game didn't really have that big of an impact because they never finished it. And yeah, the game was forfeited, and it didn't impact the standings of either franchise. But you had to think of where the sport was before this game. For decades, it was all about the hatred between crabs and plankton, the Krusty Krab and the chum bucket, and all traces of sportsmanship or respect were out the window. Then these two legacies corrupted a new generation. They were showboating. They were fighting dirty, and no one was surprised. That's where fry cooking was before this game.
For the first time in years, fry cooking was seen as an honorable sport, a game with heart. And you know, before the game started, SpongeBob said that bringing home the gold would bring honor and glory to the Krusty Krab, but seeing those two up there together, SpongeBob and Patrick side by side, well, that brought honor and glory to the entire sport of fry cooking.